Hello and welcome to Ani Short Stories. I hope you enjoy this story. I'm going to try and upload a new story each day. The Phantom Library. Holly Arnold had always found comfort in the quiet sanctuary of libraries. The Isle of Wight's dimly lit, ivy-clad public library had been her refuge ever since she moved there a year ago. It stood on a hilltop, an old building with stone gargoyles perched on its corners, their eyes seemingly watching over the visitors. Locals whispered about the library, saying strange things happened there, but Holly dismissed it as old island folklore. That is, until the day she discovered the hidden section. It was a cold, misty evening when it all began. Holly had taken over the role of the head librarian after the last one, Mrs. Weatherby, mysteriously disappeared without a trace. The old woman had been there for decades, her absence unsettling the regular patrons. Holly threw herself into work to quell her growing unease. She catalogued books, sorted through dusty archives, and made plans to digitize the older collections. But on that particular evening, while organizing a neglected corner of the basement, she found something strange. Behind a forgotten stack of bookshelves, she noticed a faint outline of a door she had never seen before. It blended so perfectly with the wall that she almost missed it. Her heart raced with curiosity as she approached. The knob was icy cold, and with a creak that seemed to echo throughout the entire library, she turned it and stepped inside. The room was small, cramped, and smelled of old paper and mildew. But what caught her attention was the array of books that lined the shelves, ancient, leather-bound tomes, their titles written in faded gold. At the center of the room was a simple wooden table, and on it a single book lay open, waiting. Holly's eyes scanned the spine, the future that waits. She hesitated, a cold shiver running down her spine. Something about this room felt wrong, deeply wrong. But the allure was too great to resist. She sat down at the table and began to read. The first words made her heart stop. Holly Arnold will discover this room on a misty evening and sit to read these words. She pushed the book away, standing abruptly, her breath quickening. How could it know? She glanced over her shoulder, expecting to see someone watching her, but the room was empty. Trembling, she forced herself to continue reading. It wasn't just about her, it was about the future. Her future. It told her where she would be in the next few hours, the next days, even the next year. But there was something unsettling in the final passage. A choice will come, and with it, a terrible price. She will either leave the library, or never leave at all. Holly slammed the book shut, her fingers trembling. The pages whispered as though alive, and for a fleeting moment she thought she heard Mrs. Weatherby's voice. She stood quickly, but the door she had entered through was gone. The wall was now solid stone. Panic gripped her chest. She tried to remember how she had come in, but the room seemed to warp around her. Desperation clawed at her mind as she frantically scanned the shelves for anything that might help her escape. And then she saw it. The cost of knowledge. With shaking hands, she pulled the book from the shelf. Its weight was immense, heavier than it looked. The cover was blank, but as soon as she opened it, her name appeared in ink that spread across the page like blood. Holly Arnold, what is it you seek to know? The question hovered in the air, the words flickering as if alive. Holly hesitated, her mind racing. She thought of the future, of the ominous warning in the first book. What would happen if she stayed? What if she left? The words on the page shifted again. Every answer requires a sacrifice. Her breath caught in her throat. Was she willing to pay? And what would the cost be? The light in the room dimmed, shadows stretching out across the floor as if the very walls were closing in on her. The air grew colder, and Holly felt something brush against her neck, a whisper of something unseen. She had to choose. Slowly, she placed the book down and turned back to the future that waits. Her fingers shook as she opened it once more. The words had changed. Now they spoke of a fate darker than she could have imagined. She will be trapped within these walls forever unless she offers up a piece of herself to the library. Her heart pounded. A piece of herself? What did that even mean? The room was alive now, the air thick with whispers, voices calling to her from the shelves. She backed away, her mind spinning. She needed to get out, but the door was gone, and the walls seemed to be closing in on her. Desperation clawed at her mind as she searched for another exit. The table, she realized. Something was hidden in the table. She hurried over to it and pried at the edges. The wood was brittle, and after a few moments of frantic effort, a compartment slid open. Inside was a small, ornate box. The whispers grew louder as she reached for the box, her fingers brushing the cool metal. Slowly she opened it. Inside was a single, withered piece of parchment, and upon it a name was written, Mrs. Weatherby. Holly's blood ran cold. The price for knowledge, the terrible cost, it wasn't just a warning. It was a trade. Mrs. Weatherby had been consumed by the library, her name taken as a toll for whatever forbidden truth she sought to uncover. And now the library wanted Holly. She stumbled backward, clutching the box. The walls seemed to pulse around her, the books whispering her name, demanding her choice. Time was running out. Holly could feel the room closing in, the air growing heavier, suffocating. She had to act. Without thinking, she reached into the box and pulled out the parchment. As soon as she touched it, the ink began to fade, replaced by her own name. The library had chosen its new keeper. The door reappeared, but it was too late. The room was silent now, the whispers gone. Holly Arnold, the new phantom librarian, was bound to the cursed library forever, her fate sealed. And so the library remained, waiting for the next soul to uncover its secrets. The silence within the hidden room of the library was suffocating, pressing against Holly's mind as the realization sank in. She was trapped. Bound to this place just like Mrs. Weatherby, destined to be another forgotten soul, lost to time. But there was a shift, a subtle one, like the faintest breeze stirring the air. Holly glanced at the parchment in her hand, her name now written in dark, flowing ink. It pulsed with life, and in that moment she understood. The library wasn't just hungry for knowledge. It was a living entity, feeding on the souls of those who sought its forbidden secrets. A strange calm washed over her. If she was to be trapped here, there had to be some way to fight back. Holly wasn't the type to give in easily, even to something as powerful as the Phantom Library. She studied the room once more, her eyes narrowing. The shelves seemed to breathe, shifting ever so slightly, as if they were watching her. If this library wanted her to be its new keeper, it must rely on her to maintain its twisted cycle. The thought sent a flicker of defiance through her. What if she could stop it? Determined, Holly returned to the table where the future that waits lay open. Her fingers traced the edges of the book as she flipped through its pages. The library could see the future, predict every choice she might make, but perhaps there was something it hadn't anticipated. A final passage caught her eye. A single act of rebellion will unravel the cycle, but beware, for not all who defy the library leave unscathed. Holly paused. A single act of rebellion? The warning echoed in her mind, but she knew she had no choice. If she didn't try, she'd be consumed just like Mrs. Weatherby, her existence reduced to a name on a forgotten piece of parchment. She glanced at the small box once more. Mrs. Weatherby's name had faded, and in its place her own future was being written. The ink shifted on the parchment, new words forming as if the library was adapting to her thoughts. It knew what she was planning. But maybe, just maybe, it couldn't stop her. Holly moved quickly, gathering the other books from the shelves, the cost of knowledge, the secrets unspoken, whispers of time, anything that might hold a clue. She spread them out on the table, frantically flipping through pages. She could feel the library pushing back, its walls closing in as the shadows lengthened around her. The books were filled with cryptic passages, vague prophecies, and warnings. But then she found it, a small note scrawled in the margin of the secrets unspoken: to break the curse, burn the pages that hold your fate, but do so at great peril, for the library does not forgive such defiance. Her pulse quickened. Burn the pages. Could it really be that simple? If she destroyed the parchment with her name, perhaps the library's grip on her would weaken. But what would it cost her? There was no time to dwell on the consequences. Holly grabbed a nearby candle, the flame flickering as if in protest. She set the edge of the parchment against it, watching as the fire slowly took hold, the edges curling and blackening. The ink writhed as though alive, her name fighting to stay on the page, but the fire consumed it all. The room screamed. A deafening wail filled the air, and the walls seemed to pulse with fury. The shelves shook violently, books falling to the floor in a cascade of knowledge and curses. The table splintered beneath her, the ground quaking as the library rebelled against her act of defiance. Holly covered her ears, but the sound was unbearable, a mix of tortured souls and ancient voices crying out in rage. The door that had reappeared earlier burst open, but instead of leading back to the main library, it revealed a swirling vortex of shadows and whispers, a void that seemed to stretch into eternity. The library was trying to reclaim her. Holly staggered back, the flames still licking at the edges of the parchment, but it wasn't enough. The library wouldn't let her go that easily. In one final act of desperation, she flung the burning parchment into the void. The moment it disappeared into the darkness, the room went silent. The air stilled. The shadows retreated, and the library vanished. Holly found herself standing in the basement once more, the secret door gone, the hidden room erased from existence. The library around her was eerily quiet, the shelves undisturbed, as if nothing had ever happened. But Holly knew better. She could still feel the weight of the place, the lingering presence of something far older and darker than she had ever imagined. Her breath came in short, ragged gasps as she clutched the edges of the table, trying to steady herself. Had she really done it? Was she free? The answer came slowly, creeping up her spine like an icy finger. A faint whisper echoed in the silence, so soft it could almost be imagined. Not yet. Holly glanced down at her hand, and her blood ran cold. The skin along her palm had started to darken, the same ink-black color that had once filled the pages of The Future That Waits. The curse hadn't been broken, it had merely shifted. She was no longer bound to the library, but the library was bound to her. From that moment on, wherever Holly went, strange things followed. Books in her home rearranged themselves. Pages turned on their own. And sometimes, late at night, she could hear the faint rustling of paper, as though the library was calling her back. She had escaped the phantom library, but it had left its mark. And Holly knew, deep down, that it was only a matter of time before the library would reclaim what it was owed. For no one defies the phantom library forever, and it always collects its due. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this story. Please don't forget to like, and even better, like and subscribe. Thank you very much, and I hope you have had a great day.